All right. So, I was pretty excited for God of War Ragnarok when it was announced. It wasn't that long after um, the 2018 reboot had come out. I think that game could fairly be called at least one of the better games of its generation. I think you could call it a masterpiece if you liked it that much. I would stop just short of that because it has no replayability. So going into this, I wanted more of that game. I was expecting more of that game. A lot of the journalists that had written about it in previews were saying it was more of the same, that maybe there was a more epic story behind it. But as soon as I saw the first couple hours, because I watched a stream, I realized that I was going to regret this pre order at full price because it's just so damn chatty. And they have lost the sort of suggestion available, the nuance of the cinematic flair of the first game that they rebooted the series with, and went for what is essentially a high action Marvel get everybody together style storyline, which is full of endless quips and banter, which ruin the impact of every moment, which stop you from feeling or thinking anything while it occurs, unless it tells you to. And it is so directed, it is so detailed in making sure that you feel and you do things exactly when it wants you to, that it starts to feel like almost like Final Fantasy 13 was when it released. It's one long corridor where they let you loose once in a while, where you can kind of do stuff, but ultimately it is a Tomb Raider game this time around. If that was a reboot itself, but this is just tied in knots. They went nuts with the Metroidvania design to where I visited some of these areas in this game 5 times, and I got lost every time I was in there. And I'm not a complete idiot when it comes to knowing where I am, remembering things, and observing things. So it was a complete tangle to backtrack and go around. And so when I am backtracking through this game, and I'm okay, it's a beautiful game. Let's get that up front. It is a beautiful game. When I'm backtracking through the game, I'm going back through these areas. I notice a lot of these vocal ticks and the commentary that is constantly firing off with the companions is refiring outside of the moment, outside of the narrative. It's almost like they didn't want you to go back through, and they wanted you to continue with the story because it's a ride. It's a theme park ride, and it's so much of a theme park ride this time that it was painful to go back and do side quests and look for new experiences when the old experiences kept firing off. And what I mean in practical terms is voice lines related to the environment. Uh, anytime, think of it like children who overshare. It's like you pick up a cup and they have something to say about a cup. You pick up a cup again 5 minutes later. Maybe they say the same thing about the cup because it's an automatic need to share and express themselves, which is very natural for a developing mind, but it is annoying as shit in a video game when you're dealing with adults. And I found it completely frustrating to sit through this game until I had done most of the story, until I had done all of the collecting, and when I was left just backtracking through the woods trying to catch the one collectible I missed or find the hidden area, when the companions shut up. When Mimir on my belt stopped talking, and when they all shut up, it was back to what was cool about the first game. So I know that's a lot to say about that aspect of the game. It's not that big of a deal, but The trouble is the game is so designed around making sure you hear all of the work they put into the voice acting and all of the sets they've designed that it forgets to be a semi-open world game. And there's only a few areas here where you can really go and explore on your own, and a lot of it is very directed by the guy on your waistband and your companion right there, who point out and tell you where every secret and every collectible in the game are as you walk past them. So they've taken away the enjoyable silence, they've taken away the minimal conversation, and they've taken away the nuance of the experience so that you kind of go through it fast enough so that it doesn't take 80 hours and you don't get too lost. And for me, it's a game made for the lowest common denominator. It's made for people who need to be directed, uh, and there's no way to turn it off. There's just no way to turn it off outside of muting the voiceovers in the game. So when I did get into those big areas and I did explore, I did have a lot of fun. I think that the northern part of what is it, Vanaheim in the crater is the best part of the game, and it's completely optional. You don't have to do any of it, and it's so much fun. I mean, I spent like 6 or 7 hours in that area alone, just exploring because it was awesome, and doing all the stuff there was to do there. Bunch of great boss fights, bunch of great puzzles. You don't have to do any of it. And earlier in the game, when you're in Svartalheim, there's a Bay of Bounty. You don't have to go there. You don't have to do any of it. It's all completely optional. And it's, again, one of the best parts of the game. It's got some of the best side quests, some of the best acting in the game. Uh, it, it really confused me. Uh, like, why was I enjoying this part of the game so much more than the other? And it was because it let me sit back and enjoy it and not funnel me through the right way to go incessantly like a backseating child. So I guess that gripe will never go away. It's such a big part of the game that they programmed in the hand holding that I just couldn't. I could never play this game again. I could never sit through that story again. I don't think it's as profound as it thinks it is. I think they have a lot less wisdom to share about familial relationships, respect, um, critical thinking, and things like that. It's no longer in here. A lot of it is just little quips and a couple bits of wisdom that might help you if you didn't play the first game. I don't know. It's a I don't see the purpose of it anymore. I don't think that the story needed to be told, and I don't think that it really achieves anything other than just this whole idea. If the takeaway of the game that you've been playing for 60 hours is this idea that you could try to be better yourself rather than trying to control other people, that is a very light takeaway from 60 hours worth of work. That is a 1.5 hour movie's tagline, not a 60-hour game. So it was so superficial to sit through that story and how long it took and how much talking there was. So, it is one of the better games of the year. I'm not going to not give it its due for being as beautiful and impressive as it is. It was a fun experience, but it was nowhere near the piece of art that the last game was. This is just an okay sequel that has very expensive production values on par with the last. It's just very overworked and not necessary. So they've set it up generally with a lot of loose ends. We don't know what happened to Thrud as she took Thor's hammer. We don't know what happened to Atreus as he looked for the giants of Jotunheim. So they've implied that there will be another one. And for me, it's sort of like when I got done with the second series of The Witcher and they said there would be a third. I don't need another season of that. It's not that great. And I feel like this is just a bad TV show that wants to keep going when it shouldn't. So that's all I had to say about it. I mean, the combat was fun. I put a lot of time into a certain build, and the game fought against it every step of the way. So there was nothing redeeming about that. Dodging, parrying, and focusing on realm shifts will inevitably inevitably be limited by the game's cheapness, and this occurs on every difficulty, where you can parry up to 2 times in a row, and then it seems to lock you out of doing it more consistently. And this is the most frustrating part of the game, especially when they put you in a boss fight with up to 3 characters who focus on you at once. So, without uh, like a pristine takeaway from the combat, I didn't know what I could walk away from this game, giving it a very high recommendation. It's definitely a moderate recommendation, and not a game that should uh, you, you shouldn't be reassured by the coattails of the previous game that this is going to be mind blowing, other than how it looks. Beautiful presentation, gorgeous acting, everything's perfect. It's just not fun, and the combat sucks. So there you go. Salty for me, but see if it's your thing. You know, there's endless coverage of this game, so there you go.